and what is said in prayer. Give us what we need for the rest of our journey, because we still on it. No matter where we are in life, we're still on that journey. And so it says, according to wisdom, there are two possible paths, and we know that. It's either going to be straight, it says, this leads to life, or it's going to be crooked, and this is going to lead to death. God guides his people to live with justice and integrity like a father guides. And the final line in verse 3 states that God shepherds his people for his name's sake. For his name's sake. And then now we go to it's telling us about what's going on in the 4th verse, but that talks about God's guidance when we're distressed. When we're distressed, he's still guiding us. It ain't gonna always, it may be mountaintops, but there's also gonna be valleys. So he's still leading and guiding us. It says that the psalmist imagined a path that leads through a dark valley, also known as the valley of the shadow of death. Every day that God grants us another day, we still are walking in the valley of the shadow of death. As we're walking in this valley of the shadow of death, God is right there with us. So we don't need to fear. We don't need to be all worked up and worried about it, because God is there and his will is going to be done. So it says to us that the psalmist found confidence in God's presence during difficult times and did not fear evil because God's promised to be with him. The psalmist uses a metaphor of a shepherd and his tools, the rod and the staff. What the shepherd did when it was time to lay the sheep down for the evening, he would lay across the front of where the sheep lay. And this prevented any sheep robbers coming in and stealing the sheep. And the shepherd had a rod. So David is breaking it down for us. He says this is used to describe God's protection and guidance. And the psalmist ends this section by reaffirming God's comfort in the midst of trouble. Even when we're in trouble, even trouble that is seen or unseen, God is still in the midst to comfort us when we're in this trouble. And then the second portion says that the Lord is my host, verses 4 through 6. Verse 4 says, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me, thy rod and thy staff, they comfort. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies, thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. The poem's second part shifts. It shifts from describing God as shepherd to describing him as a host. And we know, because all of us have hosted parties. So when we host something, we set the table. We set the table for our guests. And whatever is likable on the menu, there may have been some input from some other people. But as the host, you're there to appease the people that you have invited to the table. So it says, although some people believe that the host and the shepherd are the same, the poem's primary message emphasizes that God provides what is necessary in abundance. Because he says, thou preparest the table, which means he provided everything on this table. And then it says that he protects us, even when we're in the presence of our enemy. He still protects us. And then, not only that, when the cup runneth over, that just simply saying that you are in an abundance of blessings. Now, in the section of the poem, God treated the psalmist as his guest, it tells us, preparing food for him and filling his cup to the brim. The overflowing cup connects to the theme of blessings or salvation, which is the opposite of the cup of judgment. Even though the psalmist hinted at trouble in verse 4, he expressed confidence in God while facing enemies, which he mentioned for the first time in verse 5. And then God demonstrates whose side he was on to the enemies through his presence and provision.